I'm April Brown.
And I'm Sarah Sklash, and you're listening to Sweet Success.
You've just checked in to Sweet Success. Join me, Katie Cline, for exclusive conversations with hotel executives, hospitality leaders, and industry innovators. Together, we'll uncover the strategies and techniques these masters of hospitality relentlessly refine. Whether you're already in the industry or just starting out, tune in every week to unlock the secret to your sweet success. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Sweet Success. I'm your host, Katie Cline, and today I'm thrilled to welcome April Brown and Sarah Sklash to the show. April and Sarah are two best friends who quit their jobs in 2016 to become full-time moteliers. They purchased a rundown motel in Prince Edward County in Canada, rolled up their sleeves, reimagined the experience, and created what is now known as the June Motel. The opening of their second location in Sauble Beach was documented on the incredible Netflix series Motel Makeover. And 2 years ago, they added a third location in Beaver Valley to the mix. April, Sarah, thank you both so much for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I am so excited to get to chat with you guys. I loved the Netflix show, and I love everything that you're building with the June Motel brand. So let's start at the beginning. How did you guys first meet?
So Sarah and I have been friends for over 20 years. We met at university. We went to University of Western Ontario in London, Ontario, Canada, not London, England. Should specify that. And yeah, we both, I think immediately sort of had this like shared love of travel and seeing the world and like really bonded over that. And it wasn't until years later that we were in Toronto, still, best friends, still, kind of having this dream of doing something else, that the motel even became a possibility.
And that idea of doing something else, I think that's something that really resonates with a lot of people. What were you guys both doing in your career before?
I was working for a PR and marketing agency, and Sarah was working for the Ontario government. And yeah, I think it is that like we both just dreamed of doing something totally different with our lives and our careers at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was the beginning of 2016, and we were kind of, I think, at this point in our careers that we're like, okay, this is the year we're going to make some changes. And cracked open a bottle of wine on a Friday night, and we just started brainstorming like 50 different business ideas. And they were all pretty focused on this destination, Prince Edward County, which is 2 hours outside of Toronto. Because at the time we had been going out there with our girlfriends, and it was this up and coming wine destination, great restaurants, like really like cool rural environment, great wineries, and just like nowhere awesome to stay. And really like lacked, I think, like a lot of experiences, so that we knew there was an opportunity to do something there, but at the time we didn't know what that looked like. One of the ideas that we actually loved was this idea of creating this adult wine camp in Prince Edward County. And so, we start having this conversation of like, okay, where are we going to host this? And it's a one weekend little side hustle. We're like, we'll just like make wine fun and like bring cool people together and like have like a real experience for our weekend. And Sarah's like, there's this motel. It's for sale just outside of Picton. And, we can maybe take that over for the weekend and make it look cute just for the weekend. And like we started like thinking through what it's going to take to make this motel look cute for the weekend. And it was pretty quickly into that conversation that we just looked at each other. We were like, we should buy that motel. And
I love that.
Yeah, it's like the leap of like this little tiny side hustle was like, full-time moteliers.
You went from like, we should do a side hustle for one weekend where we could earn a little extra cash and go to a place that we want to be in anyway, to, I think we're going to buy that motel now.
Yeah, totally. And like not only buy the motel, but move into the motel, move to this like town of 4,000 people, into this motel that's known as like a popular stay for fishermen and hunters at the time. And there was a 3-bedroom apartment above the lobby that Sarah and I lived in for the first couple of years.
And financing wise, how were you guys able to make that happen?
So back in the day, and in many places still today, motels are relatively affordable by, the standards of hospitality real estate, our friends are buying houses in Toronto for, a higher price than what we were able to buy a 16-bedroom motel
Wow.
with a 3-room apartment in it. That said, we still were starting out as entrepreneurs. And so one of the interesting things that we were able to do was we got a vendor take-back mortgage that was news to us as to what it was. And so instead of getting a traditional bank loan to purchase the motel, the majority of that money actually came from the sellers of the motel, which were a couple that were retiring. And then, so that was enough to get us the purchase. April and I had to jump right in there, like days after we took possession. And we had to operate the Sportsman Motel for the summer because we're just, we needed the money to pay the mortgage and get ready until we could kind of get our plans in place to build what, our hopes and dreams were. And on top of that, on financing, in Canada, there's Community Futures. So sort of a bank that supports small businesses with loans that are going to support entrepreneurs in creating businesses.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's a few really interesting parts here. It went from you guys sitting together, having a glass of wine, saying, we want to do something more, something else. What was the timeline from that conversation to making the offer to it being successful to you guys moving into the motel?
We started that conversation in January. It was a week later that we drove out in the middle of a snowstorm to look at this motel. And I think maybe 2 months later, we put the offer in, and I think we took possession on like June 1st. So it was 6 months really from the first conversation to like fully like packing our bags and moving into this motel.
Wow. And during that 6-month period, I imagine you guys quit your jobs.
April did. I think she was like living in a car for a while, just, gallivanting around Arizona. I didn't quit my job until several months after we had been operating the Sportsman Motel. So, I had a personal mortgage. I just like financially wasn't fully ready to make the leap into job, and there was some money coming in from the business right away, but enough to pay both of us anything reasonable. And so, I would work my government job from 9 to 5, and then I would go home and I would, answer emails, and I was doing the bookkeeping, and then I would go out every weekend and like check guests in and help clean rooms. But then by the time I got to when we were going to start the renovations, it was a need to like jump with both feet into it.
And personal mortgage, Sarah, do you mean on a house separate from this motel?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were in that house until you then fully moved into the motel for renovation time.
I never fully moved into the motel. April fully lived there. I might have spent weekends there sometimes, but my home was like 30 minutes away.
Mm-hmm. And then how did filming the Netflix series happen?
Oh, that's fast forward several years. So April and I, so we ran this like really divey motel for summer. So that was, just a kind of a crazy adventure, but that was also our education. Like we had never worked in hospitality before. We didn't really know how to run a motel. So that was a really, really valuable season of like making some mistakes before we went on to create the June brand. So that was summer 2016 that we operated. Over winter and spring 2017, we got ready. We created the brand. April and I renovated. We had friends out for the weekend. And then we opened the motel in Prince Edward County in 2017. Kind of an instant success. Like there was so much demand for a great, fun place to stay in this region. And, it was great experience running it for that season. But April and I realized we loved that experience of the creating and the bringing something back to life so much that it wasn't even the end of our first season where we started looking for the next place. And that was a long process to really find the right spot. So we kind of traveled all over Canada. We were chatting, I think around then we might have looked in Finger Lakes as well, which we really love. And then we ended up finding this perfect motel in Sauble Beach. And so we started looking at that. That would have been 2018, and we bought in 2019. So, it's taking a while, but the timing worked out really perfectly where a friend of our graphic designer named Jessica Namias was a television producer. And she had stayed at the June. She was one of our very first guests, but she had a light bulb moment like years later. She's like, that would make a good television show. So right as we were looking at buying the motel, she reached out that she had this idea. And so, by January 2020, she had created, the concept for the show, had pitched it to a production company called Proper in Canada, who then pitched it around and it got picked up by Netflix. So that takes us to about January 2020, where we were in Sauble Beach with another divey motel and a film crew kind of ready to capture all of it.
And then COVID.
We joke the show always wanted like a little bit of drama. And so they they tried to involve our partners and our friends. And, I feel like they were like looking for something juicy, and then COVID happened. So they didn't need anything juicy because it was just like real actual drama.
Well, I was rewatching the show in preparation for our conversation today, and I just was like, wow, that feels like a lifetime ago, where you have people checking your guests in with those visors where you could see them, but you're blocking and everyone's wearing their masks. And that was our reality. And I just remember watching that first, where you take possession, the motel looks the way that it did when you first bought it. And then COVID happens, and just feeling for you guys of the panic that must have ensued, because like you said, you have personal mortgages, you have partners, you have now double money on the line because this is your second location. And then the entire global tourism industry grinds to a halt.
Yeah, it was, I have goosebumps right now, and I lived through that. I think it was, it's the tourism industry grinding to a halt. It was also we had hundreds of thousands of dollars of deposits that we had taken in Prince Edward County for that summer ahead. We were pretty much sold out. And certainly that spring, it was just refunding. And so it's you're just seeing all this money kind of completely disappear. And not only that, we had a gutted motel at this point in Sauble Beach. So there was no option to just should we just operate as is and postpone all of this to after COVID? It was there's no way through, there's no way out of this other than going through it. But construction and filming were also completely stopped due to COVID. So we weren't allowed to do any work on the motel. We weren't allowed to film any of it. So it was months of us kind of sitting there trying to figure out what the best course of action was. And I think on top of all of that, it was in a town that's extremely seasonal. So we operate Sauble Beach from, the May long weekend to middle of October, roughly. And so, for us, if we weren't going to open at the start of the season, you're kind of okay, there's a point where it doesn't make sense to open at all that year. And so we pushed to open for Labor Day weekend at a 6-week season, essentially, in our first season. But the crazy thing is, I truly, it's this blessing in disguise in some ways. COVID was so hard and so terrible in so many ways, but when we launched the motel in Sauble Beach, we had just like pent up demand for doing something new, seeing something new, being outside, like in a safe environment. And we could deliver on all of those things. We had a pool, you didn't have to go through an elevator. There was no indoor like lobby experience really, or like hallways. So the motel was very COVID friendly in some ways. And so I think like the demand was just wild the minute that we opened, and that carried us through a couple of years, certainly.
I imagine looking back, it's easy to paint the rosier picture now, but I could also think that you found this second location, which it took you about 2 years to do. You are investing into it. You get this opportunity to not only be on a TV show, but on a Netflix TV show. You have your entire summer season sold out in advance of even opening. You must feel like you're on cloud nine. And then COVID comes in and it brings in all of these questions for really everyone in every industry around the world, which was like, how long is this going to last? Like, is this forever now? Like, we had never really lived through anything like that before. So did you guys have any moments where you're just like, the rug is being pulled out from under us?
Yeah, I think in the show you see it. I mean, I was crying in my room because we didn't have information, and it looked like we were just going to lose our entire business, and like there was no way forward. Yeah, it was pretty dark times. I think I've like blocked some of that out. But yeah, one of the things that April and I say is having like your best friend as your business partner is, only one of us can be really down at a time. Whoever's like slightly higher up has to like really, be the optimist, kind of help one another up. And when we can, honestly, then I think we like drank Negronis or made dirty martinis, cracks of wine. Like it was a scary time.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk a bit more about working with your best friend. I imagine in ways, like you just said, it's the best thing ever because you know each other so well. You can lift each other up. You can be true partners. But I imagine that also comes with challenges too. Have you guys had any major disagreements while working together?
I think the good thing is we haven't had major disagreements because I think at the end of the day, we're both pretty aligned on the vision of, where we want to go and what we want this place to be. And we designed this place from the very beginning to be a lifestyle business. Like at the end of the day, we want to live a very fulfilled life. We want to be fulfilled in our lives. We want to be fulfilled in our careers. And how do we build a business that, does that? It doesn't kill us, that gives us the autonomy and the freedom that we both seek. So I think we're both very much on the same page there and support one another in helping, to make sure that that's true for us, for each of us. It's like our disagreements show up in like the small nitty gritty ways of like, which side of the bed should the garbage can go on? And I'm like, you did not see that when you walk through the door. And Sarah's like, but you want the garbage to be obvious. And I'm like, but you don't want that to be your first impression. And we will bicker about these like little decisions until somebody clearly cares more because they aren't willing to let it go. And then the other person was like, okay, you can have this one. But we also, we say like disagreement, I think it's a really good thing because I think it challenges us to get to a better end place always, and to like think things through from multiple perspectives. And so, yeah, I think we welcome a certain level of disagreement and discomfort there. But at the end of the day, like I think we both, we own us. We have a kind of our areas of expertise in the business, and then a lot of shared areas and shared passions and a shared vision. And I think that's really important.
And how do you divide those areas of expertise? Like, do you have very clear swim lanes around what April's doing versus what Sarah's doing and vice versa?
Yeah, I think I came from like a business analysis, finance, government background. And so all of those things are what I'm comfortable doing. And April came from a marketing and PR background. And so I think between those two kind of groups of skill sets, we have so much covered. And then we're both really I'm passionate about design, travel, guest experience, and so really come together on those pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think back to filming the series, now that the show is out there, I'm sure that's given you even more fans around the world. What do you think maybe one of the biggest misconceptions is of being on a TV show like that?
Oh, so many, so many. I think people think like because you have a Netflix show, like, A, you're rich and you've really made it and all of these things. And it's definitely not true. You don't get paid really very much money at all to make a television show, especially a first season. And we're not in it to become like, social media influencers on the other side of it. We have a business to run. And so that stream of revenue that I think a lot of people get from reality TV isn't really like what we're excited about. And so it truly hasn't changed much. Like, I think we're like relatively the same people. We definitely saw a bump in our business in the years after the Netflix show, and a bump in like our social media following and engagement, and just the places in the world that people are finding us is like, like I remember being in Sauble Beach and there was like a woman and her mother that came from New Zealand to stay at the June. Like that was like the primary purpose of the trip. And so to see that we've created something that really has such impact and like really resonates with people so much, I think is really a special experience.
It was really cool to see the show really resonated with like tween girls. And I think we're really proud. Like a lot of them will come and travel and visit and bring their families. But I think about like growing up, I would have loved to have seen like women entrepreneurs and doing something with their best friend. So really like love that we get to be an inspiration in that way.
Absolutely. Even for me, I will be 39 in a couple of weeks. Whew, very close to 40 now. And seeing you guys, it was first of all like, oh, I could do this too, or I could do this with a friend, or, is that even a path that's available? Like it has taken me almost 39 years of my life to start to think, oh, maybe I want to own a motel and go down the rabbit hole of, well, how do I do that? And how is financing possible? And understanding what a cap rate it is and NOI and all these types of things, which thankfully now we have so many free resources at our fingertips. But to be a younger person, to watch you guys on the show and not only see that you can build a really successful business, but you can have fun with your best friend while you're doing it, that is really cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You had referenced with the show wanting a little bit of drama in there, and you also referenced your partners as well. And you talked about how in both locations, at least for part of the time, you guys were spending time living in the properties. How has that balance been with your families, your friends?
Yeah. I mean, in the show, like I don't think a lot of those scenes actually really made it in, but like they would have us like calling our partners, like checking. Like I think they were just trying to not make up drama, but like capture how hard that is to just like pick up your life and move somewhere else, and be away from those people that you love. So, I mean, that certainly is hard. Certainly better that you're with your best friend and you're making Negronis every night and you're watching Schitt's Creek on TV and you love your job, and so all those things make it better. But I don't like it was a super super challenging time, especially during COVID. Then to like kind of be really away from our partners, be away from like our homes and like our daily comforts. I think just adds this other like physical challenge to the job.
Yeah, I think that said, we've really evolved since that's 6 years ago now. April has 2 little ones, and I've moved to Bermuda, and so life has changed. So we've opened our third property as well, and what's really important to us now is like it's so important that we spend time on site. But there is not going to be more moving and living there for an extended period of time because we just can't handle that in our lives now. And we've kind of grown up in other ways. But yeah, I have a crazy commute to work. So I more or less, a couple of weeks in Bermuda where my husband's working. And then I go back to Canada and a couple of weeks there where I spend time at the motels and ideally on projects. And so it's a really interesting and challenging work-life balance, but I actually kind of have learned to love it and thrive in it, where, I get couple weeks in Bermuda where I'm at my desk and I get to catch up on admin and emails and like really computer things. And then when I go back to the properties, I get to really focus on the people and the properties. And so, yeah, when April and I talk about building a lifestyle business, it's being able to really choose the life that we're going to live.
That was not a plot twist I saw coming, Sarah. The Bermuda move. That was a great one. You even caught me off guard with that one. And April, how old are your little ones?
1.5 almost, and almost 4.
Oh my gosh. I have an almost 4-year-old as well and an almost 9-month-old. So very similar ages. So I really am impressed with the daily juggle, right?
Yeah.
But I imagine this has made you guys build even stronger systems because like you're saying, Sarah, in the past, especially the first one, was kind of like, oh, could we do this? And like, we can finance it ourselves and we can move in there. We can do a lot of the DIY and renovations that you guys are so talented at. And now you've kind of grown up both personally, but also professionally. When you think about what's next for you both, for the June, what are you looking at?
More motels. I think like the thing that we've realized, we've tried a lot of different things. We kind of gone through years of being distracted and chasing the shiny, new, fun thing. But at the end of it, I think everything has taught us like we have to stay focused on what matters. And for us, what matters is creating more beautiful places to stay where like our guests can really come live the good life, creating really joyful spaces. That's what we're really passionate about. So the really tough part is it's a mix of timing and where's the right motel and the right destination with the right number of rooms and the right sort of like amenities on property. And so it requires patience to wait for like those right opportunities to come. And so I think that's where we're at right now. Is like we are ready to grow and we are looking at a lot of stuff, but we also want it to be the right next step for us. And so we're willing to be patient and like waiting for that perfect diamond in the rough to emerge, really.
Are your current 3 properties fully owned, fully funded by you guys? And are you thinking that for the future or are you open to taking on investment? Because I imagine after the show particularly, I'm sure you had a lot of people reach out.
Yeah. So as we grow, we will be looking for investors. And it's partly because the properties that we're looking at, like where we went from 16 rooms to 24 rooms to 8 rooms, but now looking at, 30 to 50 rooms. And so, we'll be looking for investors. And we definitely had lots who have reached out over the years from the show. And I think, back to April's point about patience, is it's really kind of finding the right property at the right price with the right partners. I'm not trying to make a 3P thing. And like the right structure to the deal. And so, I think we're really just like exercising patience as we wait for perfection, the 5th P. No, kidding.
Right there with a bow. You guys talked about earlier how your second property, the one that was featured in the Netflix series, that before you even opened, you were practically sold out for your entire summer season. And I imagine that is largely because of the success of your first property, but probably also what you were doing on social media. You guys will tell me if I'm right or wrong. Did you see that same effect for your third property, especially now that the show is out there? And what would you suggest to the hoteliers who are listening about how they can build that demand for their own properties?
Yeah, I think so. When we launched Sauble Beach, there was like really pent up demand. We had like a really like niche, loyal following who were really excited about that second motel. And social media was still like the main driver for reservations, I would say. And I'd say up until like maybe a year ago, like no paid advert, like no paid at all. Everything was like organic content creation and organic reach, PR, but like nothing paid, no paid advertisements, no paid social posts. And it's so like when we launched Beaver Valley, one is like a bit of a different property. It's 8 rooms. It's really designed for group getaways. And so it functions differently than our other 2 motels. And so there's partly that. And there's partly just like, I think social media has changed a lot. I think there's like hard to break through on that clutter. It's hard just to have organic content. And so leveraging, like, we certainly have had to leverage more paid. And I think realizing, like, we still talk to people today and they're like, oh, you have a third motel? And I think realizing the number of times that you have to tell people things and you have to show them things and you have to email them things before it really resonates, was almost like, that wasn't the case with the first 2. Again, I think it was just like a different time. And we also had a smaller niche audience. And what happened after the Netflix show is like our audience grew massively, but they're not all people that are in a position to just like come for a weekend next weekend, right? Like some of them are in Australia and Brazil and across Europe. And so those are like, longer term like relationships that you got to like curate and like hopefully one day they come stay. But I think that like return on your Instagram posts and the return on your email that goes out has felt different.
Yeah. What is your approach to content creation today? Are you guys working with a number of influencers and then reposting how they're seeing the properties and experiencing the properties? Are you hiring photographers that are the June brand approved to curate that? How do you approach it now, even if it's not performing in the same way that it was?
Yeah, I'd say like 95% of the photos that you see on websites, social media, everything is all from the same photographer. We absolutely love her. Her name is Lauren Miller. She specializes in like, interior photography. And she is just like, I think, like owned her craft over the last 10 years. And she's really skilled and she really understands our vision and like, the sort of like the filter that we want on the photos to be like on brand for us. In terms of video, I'd say have been doing a combination of working with people to help us like do our own reels and our own June content that feels like very polished and very on brand and like exactly how we want to storytell the properties. But then there is just like an efficiency in also hosting influencers and content creators to see properties through their lenses. And, especially just due to the physical locations of them, it's like, I can't go to Beaver Valley every 4 weeks and like capture like the snowfall. So it's like, it is handy to be able to like have some really talented content creators who love working with the June and say, hey, do you want to go for a winter getaway? This is like what I'm hoping to see. And then you could do a collaborative reel. So you're able to show your audience, you're able to tap into their audience. So it is a win-win. But I think having both is important so that like our feed doesn't, so you don't lose like sort of like our brand voice in all of that is important.
We were talking before we started recording and I was complimenting you guys, saying exactly that. I see the consistency, yet the variation, but intentionally in all of your photography, whether it be for the properties, whether it be showcasing experiences, or even your gorgeous headshots of you guys alone and then together. And during the show, you guys are often quoted saying something is or isn't very the June. And it just struck me as like, you really know your brand. So how did that just happen organically and you can kind of just feel it and it's become something that now you can articulate? Or did you guys sit down with a whiteboard and say, okay, we want our photos to look like this and not like that and our colors to be like this and like that? Like, how was your approach to branding overall?
I think it really started with who is June. So for us, June is a person. And we picked the name June because we love that it signals this start of summer feeling, but it's also a retro feminine name. And we wanted the motels to have that like retro feminine feel. And so once we had the name June, we crafted this entire persona of who June is. She's bold, she's colorful, she's a little bit retro, she's eclectic, and she, lives for like sunshine and trips with her girlfriends. And she's always chilling a bottle of rosé for days like today because she really believes in living the good life. That the idea of like celebrating the day and the moment and living in the moment. And so I think through that exercise of understanding who June is and then developing and like really renovating Prince Edward County with that in mind, And then being like, okay, we bought Sauble Beach. Like, what is this place? Oh, it's June's cool beach house. Okay, what does that look like now? And so we've always kind of gone through every decision we make or every property we buy or every kind of design aesthetic choices are like filtered through this lens of like, who is June and what would she pick here? And so it started, whiteboarding and post-it notes, but it has kind of just like a person that we really like, I think intimately know now. And she's kind of always there.
What a simple exercise, yet so effective. Even as you're saying it, I'm like, oh, I can understand like who is June. And then as you're looking at new locations, you're like, well, would June want to stay here? And what would her place be like? And I mean, that makes so much sense now why I feel like your brand is so strong, because it's like, it's a person and we're just bringing it to life. In order to bring it to life, though, you had to renovate these properties, which did not look the way they do now when you started. And one of the maybe faux or real drama that is shown in the show is conversations with contractors. And I really felt this for you guys because I think this is an area where women, or particularly young women, we worry, whether rightly or wrongly, about being taken advantage of, or maybe not feeling like we know as much as we should to be able to make sure someone isn't doing that. And not to mention, you're talking to typically male contractors and saying like, let's make this pink or bright or girly, or things that you could even see in some of the television show where your contractor's a bit like, all right, like I've never had a glass of rosé before, but like, sure, I'll try it for you guys. So I guess how much of that was real and fake? And then in all of your projects, how do you navigate that?
Really good question. And also, like, April and I are just learning as we go. This is new for us as well. And yeah, I think it's not being afraid to ask so many questions, shopping it around with different contractors, and who do you get a good vibe from? I think that's really important in the end. Some of the other lessons we've learned is like there's contractors who might be technically really good and capable and do good work. Project management, I think, varies, and that's something that we've learned the hard way. And so building in the processes to project manage kind of with them. So, it's lots of meetings. We like the term clear is kind. And so, we always let people know, over communicate. We need to be ready to give honest feedback along the way, lots of touch bases. And it's challenging, but we've gotten, I think, pretty strong at it. But yeah, every time's new. And as we look to scale as well, we'll be looking for, contractors, are you renovating what the team that can do an 8-room motel? We might be looking for someone with different levels of experience as we look into the 50-room motel, because you're getting into a whole new scale there.
Will there be a season 2 of Motel Makeover?
There would, likely be another television show, whether or not it's Motel Makeover, TBD. But we really love sharing the story and behind the scenes, and we think that that's really resonated with people. So we'll see.
You guys have been doing this for over a decade now. If you went back to that night that you guys were sitting together and having a glass of wine and saying like, oh, maybe we should do this like side hustle weekend thing, not so much what would you tell them, but what advice would you have for that version of April and Sarah to get you through and to get you to where you are now, 10 years later?
Oh, that's a good one. I think I would probably say you don't have to do this alone. Surround yourself with really people who are like the best at what they do in some ways. And I think at the very, very beginning, that wasn't an option because money was, such a big part of what we were able to do. But we still invested in a great photographer, a great graphic designer, a great lawyer who gave us really good advice. And it's grown from that. Now we have incredible restaurant partners in Sauble Beach, and We're just, our perspective of partnership and collaboration and bringing more people along the ride with us who are really good at what they do has allowed us to be really good at what we do instead of having to wear all the hats. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think about Sarah and April back then, and they were really naive, and they were just full of confidence that they could do it. And I think 10 years later, we know how hard it is. We know how many challenges there are and how much stress there is. And said being a little naive is a blessing, because you'll take on things that if you knew how hard it was, you might not take on. So I would just let them do their thing.
Yeah. Just go for it. Just be nice and just jump in.
You guys, I could see you guys in the corner looking at the younger yous, still having a glass of wine and being like, how cute are we?
Oh.
I want to ask you guys the last questions that I ask every guest on this show. And I imagine you'll both have different answers for each. So I definitely want to hear from both of you. First question is, what was the best hospitality experience that you each have ever had?
I once stayed at this hotel in Thailand, and I am very forgetful, and I often leave a lot of things behind. But I had left my passport on a different island at a different hotel, totally not associated with this hotel. And the front desk agent literally took this problem on. He was like, you're going to go to the pool, and I'm going to send somebody to get your passport, and you're going to have a great day. And, I think a great hospitality experience, you can set up the most beautiful motel with the most amazing amenities, the people who have genuine care that can go above and beyond like that guy did for me. Those are the things that I think have just truly a lasting impression, form a connection.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, what about you?
One that comes to mind is staying at the Colony Hotel in Palm Beach. It is if the June was just the most expensive version of the June, and just a whole other scale of luxury. But it's pink, it's fun, every detail's thought of. I played poolside bingo while drinking pina colada, and the level of creativity, the fun attention to detail with everything that you do there. I think it's a great place to stay.
Those are great examples, you guys. Now I'm going to ask you a little bit of a depressing question on the opposite side of that. What was the worst hospitality experience you guys have ever had?
Okay, so the one that comes to mind for me, which also might be the same one that comes to mind for Sarah, but I'm not going to name the location, but we stayed there, and it was it's really hyped up. It's a popular place to stay in the Hamptons. And it felt as though the hotel was this afterthought that it wasn't even an afterthought. I don't know if there was thought. We checked into a closet, literally a closet with boxes stored there. Nobody told us that there was breakfast. Somebody who was with us on our team had to actually help make the coffee the next day. It just felt kind of chaotic. It felt like we had rented a room at a bar versus you pay top dollar to be there, and to you should have been the VIPs of that place, essentially, if you only have a few at this location. So that was the worst hospitality experience I had. And I think it's that okay, I went in with a certain level of expectation, and this is what they were all the way down on the ground on the expectation level. So I feel that discrepancy in what it seemed like it was versus what it was really the problem.
April and I often stay at places that we're thinking about buying. So they are fixer-uppers run by people who want to get out of the business. They want to retire, or they just don't want to do it anymore. And there's been quite a few, and they're often kind of gross to stay at. And the service tends to just be completely lacking. And it's always kind of fun because we can spend the time kind of imagining what we want to do, but it's also often pretty gross and we can't wait to leave.
I'm so impressed that you guys stay.
No, seriously, I think the last time we did this, last summer, we were like, this is never happening again. We're staying somewhere nice and we're going to come for a tour. And that is
Exactly. Final question for you guys. What does hospitality mean to you? And is there anyone, a person, a brand besides the June that you think has truly mastered it?
Yeah, I think it's like this culmination of like a million details, really. And so it's not just like, the paint on the wall and the pretty furniture. It's the lighting and the music just right and the person behind the desk, like really knowing, in the June's example, knowing the June and like being able to set that vibe from the very moment somebody walks in. I think exceptional hospitality is like any moment that you can exceed someone's expectations. So I think the absolute greatest compliment we can ever get when someone stays at the June, for example, is, oh, this looks better than it does on Instagram, or this is like a better experience than I had imagined it would be. And that means that we've done our job of kind of like going above and beyond. And I think it's tough because the industry keeps changing. When we started, it was, text concierge was like new and like that was going above and beyond. But like now that's standard. It's like, then it was like, oh, greeting people by name. But like that's kind of also become standard because we have tools to like, do those background checks on everybody. And so it's forced, I think, the industry overall to continue to level up on what, exceptional hospitality means. And I can't think of a brand. There's a lot of brands I truly respect. I think are doing amazing things, but I would have to stay at them over and over to see if like they actually are executing on that level of hospitality.
Yeah. Sarah, what about you?
One of the things I always chat with the team and get them to really understand is like our guests are choosing to spend their most special moments with us. They're bringing together their family, their friends, their loved ones. Sometimes it's celebrating a special occasion, and they're choosing to spend that time and their hard-earned money with us. And so we are like the guardians of making sure that that time is as special as they're expecting it to be. Mm-hmm. And that is actually such an important role. And one of the other things is, because we're such a seasonal place, like we don't need to be the number one highlight of their year, but make it into the top 3, like deliver an experience that they're going to think about that year and they're going to have a moment. And my thing is like, I look out and I see like our guests hanging out by the campfire with their friends, having a glass of wine, roasting a s'more. And I'm like, I'm witnessing that moment happening right now. And so really striving to create those really special moments that are creating memories for people. And I'll give a shout out to Colony Hotel again in Palm Beach. I went with my husband for a little getaway, and it just like, it's been a couple years. We spent 2 nights there. We still think about it. I still have fun memories. They went above and beyond and created special experiences. And yeah, they gave me the highlight of that year.
Oh, that's amazing. April, Sarah, this has been so much fun. Thank you guys for taking the time, lifting the curtain behind the TV magic and joining us today to share just your brilliance in hospitality. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, everyone. It's time for today's Sweet Summary, where I break down the key insights and actionable takeaways from today's conversation. What started as a dream about creating a weekend side hustle quickly became 2 best friends uprooting their life to purchase a rundown motel and transform it into a place that they and their friends would like to stay. They had no hospitality experience at the time, just an idea that their lives should have more freedom, more autonomy, and yes, more fun. And what better way to achieve that than by building something amazing with your best friend? April and Sarah said it a few times. They are building a lifestyle business. And while yes, they are masters of branding who have clearly turned the June into a lifestyle brand, that's not the point. It's that they are building a business to support the type of life they want to live, not the other way around. As the business has matured, so have they. not only personally, but in the way they approach their operations, their systems, their path to growth. But one thing that hasn't changed, they continue to learn as they go. They aren't afraid to ask questions, aren't afraid to test something out. And yes, that includes an overnight stay at a bad motel and decide at the end, that's not the one for us. That mindset is exactly what makes them as individuals and their brand so powerful. Because the June isn't just an aesthetic. To them, it's a person, a fully imagined character with a point of view, a vibe, a set of standards. So when April and Sarah ask themselves, would June love this? Would June do this? What would this be for June? The answer becomes their filter for every decision, from wallpaper to welcome emails to which properties they buy. That's why they've built such a devoted following. Because when you stay at one of their properties, you can feel it. It wasn't built by a spreadsheet. It was built by someone who believed in what it could become well before the numbers ever caught up. And honestly, that belief, plus the courage to keep refining as they go, just might be the most June thing of all. And that concludes another episode of Sweet Success. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. We all know how important those 5-star reviews are. I also want to say a massive thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in. It means the absolute world to me. And I'd love to hear from you. If you have ideas for future guests, new topics to cover, or even just want to say hi, don't be shy. Message me through our website, sweetsuccesspodcast.com, or on social media at Sweet Success Podcast. That's sweet like hotel suite. Once again, I'm your host, Katie Cline, and I'm super excited to see you all next week.